I've known my best friend for as long as I can remember. I live in a small town, lots of farms and forests, and most houses are separated by patches of woods. We grew up on the same street, a little over a quarter mile away from each other, and both went to a daycare center that was between our two houses. I was the first one to start going there. As the first time my parents dropped me off, I was about a year old. I was 4 when Macy first came, and the first thing I ever said to her was, "Do you want to be my best friend?" From that moment, we were pretty much inseparable. We never went to Macy's house, always mine. She would also never talk about her family. I was always dropped off after she was, and always picked up before her, so I never even got to see what her parents looked like. That was until we were around 6. For her birthday, she had invited me over to her house to have cake, and as her best friend, I was obligated to attend. When I got there, I met her mother. She was old. Much, much older than the mother of a 6-year-old should be, and I was really confused. But I didn't ask about it, because my parents raised me to be more respectful than that. Macy, however, seemed to know I was clueless and curious, and pulled me into her bedroom, away from her mom, to explain. She told me that she was adopted because her real mommy couldn't take care of her anymore. I was 6, so that was more than enough to satisfy my childish curiosity, and we celebrated her birthday without questioning it any further. The cake her mom had made for her was delicious, and I gave her my present as we laughed and giggled and played dress up like young girls do. At around 6:30, there was a call to the house that her mom answered, and immediately after she picked up the phone, she hung up and called my mom to bring me home. I was, of course, disappointed because I planned to spend the night there. However, Macy's mom just assured me that there were some last-minute changes and we could have a sleepover another time. I said my goodbyes and my mom took me home, and I never thought much of it. The next day I tried to call Macy to see if she could hang out, but no one picked up. The day after that was Monday, so I had to return to school, but Macy didn't show up. It wasn't until Wednesday that I saw her again, and she invited me back over to her house. When I got there, her mom was out running errands, so we had her adoptive older brother, who was in high school, to babysit us. He was far more interested in video games than us, so we were pretty much home alone in her bedroom. Right away, she showed me this China doll, one that looked eerily like her. It told me her dad had given it to her as a present. I was once again very curious, as there were no pictures of an adult man anywhere in the house, and her mom didn't wear a ring. I was too young to fully understand the concept of a divorce, so in my eyes, no ring meant they were never married. I also didn't understand that you could have kids without being married, so I was thoroughly perplexed. When I asked about her dad, she simply told me she had gone to see him, which is why our sleepover had to be postponed. When I asked her where her dad lived, she told me far away and that he wasn't allowed here. She wouldn't say anything else and got really quiet, fumbling with the doll whenever I mentioned him again. After that, the topic was never brought up. The next year on her birthday, we had a sleepover. There was a phone call, but her mom didn't pick it up. A few days later, she apparently got a letter and a package. The letter was something she never showed me, and the package contained another doll that looked like her. Although, this doll was bigger and looked slightly older than the previous one. One day, a few months after that, we were playing outside, and she asked me to go find the bucket and the shovel that she had in her room. When I was searching, I found a stack of envelopes that had all been carefully torn open, all addressed to her with no return address. At that age, I knew it would be wrong to look, but I still took a peek at the top one. It wasn't particularly suspicious or creepy. Mostly it was just describing the writer's day and asking a few questions. It was all written with simple words a child could read, and was pretty normal for a letter, but there's no signature at the bottom. I shrugged it off and found what I was looking for before heading back outside, not thinking at all of the letter. Then her 8th birthday came around. Her mom had gotten sick and was in the hospital, so we were once again being babysat by her brother, who was still far more interested in Call of Duty than our welfare. We had store-bought cupcakes, and I gave her a Barbie doll I had bought with my own money, which I was so proud of. And we went up to her room to play. There was a box in the corner of the room, and although it was mostly covered up with tissue paper, I could see blonde hair sticking out of the top end, and I knew it was yet another China doll. Something about Macy seemed off. She was super antsy and anxious, always glancing out of the window, and her hands were so shaky she would constantly drop whatever toys we were playing with. It was kind of late, and I knew my mom would be coming over to pick me up at any minute, so we were putting all of our toys away when we heard a tap at the window. The man on the other side was completely unfamiliar to me. He didn't look particularly scary. In fact, he was handsome and had wrinkles by his eyes from smiling. He looked to be in his mid-30s, with a clean-shaven face and his dark, neatly slicked back hair. I could see a collar of a button-up shirt and the top part of a tie from his position against the window. He smiled as he looked at Macy, but then frowned when he noticed me. Despite him looking friendly, I was always scared of adults, especially ones that I had never met or seen before. So, I was afraid, and Macy could tell. She just grinned at me and put her hand on my arm, telling me that man was her daddy, and he was going to take her out to celebrate her birthday. She said that he could never come before because her mom wouldn't let him, but now he was secretly going to take her out for ice cream. She told me I could come if I wanted, but I just shook my head. She then went out the front door and began to unlock it, but I stopped her. I told her I didn't want to go, that my mom would come pick me up and I would get in trouble. Macy began to pout before locking the door back up and going back to her bedroom. Her dad still outside the window. It took both of our strength to get it open so she could speak. The only thing separating us from him being the flimsy screen. She told him that my mom would come and that she would pick me up, and that by the time it happened, it would be too late to get ice cream. Her dad looked really angry for a minute before he told her that they would just have to try again another time, and headed back to his truck and left. I later told my mom what happened, and in turn, she told Macy's mom. Macy was really mad at me for a while, because her mom burned all of the letters, took away her dolls, and then called the police. She got over it eventually though, and to this day hasn't heard a word from her dad. We were 16 when we found out the reason her dad was not allowed. He was apparently incredibly abusive towards Macy's mother and allegedly murdered her. However, due to lack of evidence, he was never convicted of either case. The allegations were enough to have Macy put into foster care system, where she ended up getting adopted. Macy happened to be at her grandmother's when her mom was killed or committed suicide, which is what her dad said happened, and was never actually told why she wasn't allowed to see her dad until our junior year. When we found out who her dad really was, she started thanking me. I wondered what she was doing, not remembering the time he was at the window on her 8th birthday, until she reminded me. If I hadn't been there, she would have been kidnapped by him, and God knows what would have happened to her. I hadn't thought about it much until today, where her father was convicted for 2 counts of murder. One was on Macy's birth mom, which was proven to be murder thanks to new advances in technology. The other was a case that was opened 10 years ago and happened on Macy's birthday, on the night I stopped him from taking her. He confessed that he had planned to kill her that night instead. However, he killed a blonde woman a few towns over out of rage. Is there a lesson to be learned here? Never trust your friend's parents, because you never know when they're a murderer. This happened a few years ago, back when I was 17. It was winter, so it was getting dark fairly early, and an event was going on at my girlfriend's school. Throughout the event, live music was performed by students. My girlfriend was singing as part of a small band, and I was going to see her perform. Thing is, I live a long and awkward bus route that doesn't link up with the village in which the school is located, meaning I have a 20-minute bus ride and around a 15-minute walk to get across some fields to get to that school. So, I set out with plenty of time before the bus ride and enough time for my short walk. I get on the bus, sit in the back seat as I usually do when it's free. It's already dark at this point, and just my luck, partway through my bus journey, traffic. There had been an accident some ways up the road, which caused delay for quite some time, meaning that when I got off the bus, I was going to have to either run or be late for the event.
So the bus finally gets to a stop. Around 4 other people get off the bus before me. The first, a girl roughly around my age, possibly a year or two younger, hard to tell. She gets off the bus and jogs along down the road, out of sight. The other passengers, mostly elderly, take their time to get off the bus. I thank the driver, hop off the bus, and quickly pull my phone out to check the time. And I text my girlfriend telling her that I was delayed. So, it's time to go. Don't want to be late after all. I run down the road and turn through the gate into the first field and continue running. Ah, I thought, as once again I saw the girl from the bus up ahead of me, in the middle of the field. She must have got tired and started walking. I didn't think too much of it and planned to run past her. I continue until I saw her stumble and pause for a moment. She must have heard my footsteps. She turned her head and caught sight of me, immediately snapping forwards again to keep walking. I sensed she felt nervous, so I stopped running and began to walk, which may sound more suspicious than I intended it to be, but I wasn't about to charge headfirst towards a young, nervous girl in the middle of the field in the dark. Now that, I feel, would have probably gotten me into some trouble. However, I didn't want to be late. I knew my girlfriend would be one of the first performances. She'd kill me if I missed it, but I couldn't run. So, I found a mid-ground and walked quickly. After a couple minutes, I gained up on the girl. She noticed and sped up too. For God's sakes. Can you just hang on to the side and let me get past you? I thought to myself. I sped up slightly. She did the same. I saw her clutching at her phone, probably resting her fingers on the dial button for emergency services. I suddenly realized that she may actually be heading to the same event I was. I opened my mouth to speak, only to clamp it shut immediately. She was nervous, and I'm socially awkward, so chances are I'd just make her think she was being stalked or something. I knew better than to spit out creepy lines about knowing where she was headed to. After all, I wasn't a student at this school. She couldn't have recognized me if she tried. We began a long, awkward game of possibly terrified girl walks quickly away from impatient yet innocent and nice guy with no harmful intent. I felt just awful, but I couldn't slow down. I needed to be at that event on time. Eventually we got to the fields and back onto a street-lit road. She followed around the road, presumably to stay within the streetlights. I immediately darted into an alleyway, shortcut towards the school, attempting to make up for lost time, and got to the school just as the crowd filtered into the event hall. Once the event was over, we all went out into the car park, and there was the girl, standing among a group of her friends, likely having warned them about the field creeper who chased her down for 15 minutes. She noticed me. Her face went blank and slightly pale. I held my girlfriend's hand and gave the girl a sheepish smile and a shrug. She reciprocated with a kind expression that says, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," as she realized all I was trying to do was get here quickly. I didn't dare start a conversation and just left. So, to the girl that I probably scarred within an inch of her life, I'm not some evil stalker creep. Never have been, and I never hope to be. I deeply apologize, and I do hope I never have to feel awful about not stalking someone again. In all honesty, I probably would have rushed to your aid had some stalker creep come after you in my sight. Hope you enjoyed the event, and in the future, stay safe traversing fields alone in the dark. I hope you guys can bear with me for this story. It wasn't exactly a scary one, but rather it was pretty sad. Still, it was a cop story, and a few of you requested those, and I found this one pretty interesting. So, hope you enjoy. This is a story my father told me, and I'm sure you guys will like it, or at least find it interesting. But I have to admit, it's also pretty sad. He was on patrol one night in the early 90s when he was called over by another unit. There was a break-in, and the guy had the family at gunpoint.
a father, mother, and their daughter. The guy was extremely agitated by the time my dad arrived, and the negotiator wasn't making it any better. The guy wouldn't say what he wanted, he just kept telling them to leave him alone with them. Obviously, they wouldn't do that. The guy ended up walking over to the window with the mother's head locked around his arms, with a gun pointing at her temple, telling everyone they had 10 seconds to leave, or he'll blow her head off. My dad tells me this is where he feels like he messed up. Everyone took aim on the guy, waiting for him to get to 1. But before he started counting, everyone was ordered not to shoot, due to the high risk of hitting the mother. So, they pulled their guns back while the negotiator tried his best to plead with the man in the window, holding that scared family's lives in his hands. He started counting. 10, 9, 8, 7. It's freezing cold outside, but my dad can feel himself sweating. 6, 5, 4. I'm a good shot. I can take it from here. Please, let me. My dad begs. 3, 2, 1. The gun goes off. Blood and bits of flesh and brains hit the window, and the man drops the corpse of what was a beautiful little girl's mother and a caring husband's dearly beloved. Before the police can move in, right as my dad starts to make a run for it, he grabs the little girl and holds her up and walks to the window. My dad is only a few feet from the door, while the man in the window screams again, "Leave or I'll kill her too." He can't do anything. He's frozen in fear and anger. He wants to run up there and kill that guy, if not just beat the ever-living shit out of him, but if he moves one more step, then the girl could die. He can't risk it. The guy starts counting again. 10, 9, 8, 7. He stopped. Why did he stop? There was no reason for him to stop. Please, please keep counting. We need that time. All this was going through my dad's head, as well as the other officers there. The man walks back and gets out of sight of the others, standing behind a wall on the side of the window with the girl in his arms. My dad can't take it anymore. He busts in with a few other officers right behind him, and only a few steps away from the stairs, he hears a shot go off. He's running as fast as he can to the other room, to the room they were in. Then another shot goes off. He reaches the room and kicks the door down and finds himself looking at a bloody pool of bodies. A father who had been murdered early on, and the fresh corpses of the mother and the child, as well as the man in the window. He committed suicide right after killing the girl. He tells me he wasn't able to walk straight after seeing that. He had to be helped out. He lost his sanity for a short bit during that, and went into an insane fit of tears and screaming. He doesn't like the holidays anymore. The snow, the Christmas decorations, the holiday music, they all remind him of this day. It wasn't his fault, but he feels completely responsible.